Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Perfect Faraday. I think this is episode 14. Jeremiah, with my co host here, George Merchant.
Hello, hello, hello.
So, George, I just have a simple question and kind of keep it simple at first, but basically, society tries to uphold norms, right? What's some very basic ways do you like behind the scenes that you think, societal or otherwise, to keep people on the guardrails that you've noticed through your life or just know?
Um, Peanut butter and banana sandwiches are delicious.
That sounds like a good, good thing. Is that all you got for me?
Yeah, I was really super helpful there, wasn't I?
Yeah.
So societal norms, the guide rails, I would say was the values that we were raised on. I think this has been a subject of, something we've talked about and brought up frequently so far in our episodes is that the values that we're raised on and that we hold to be true. Nowadays, it seems to be even more like spelled out, where it's like the people that have like core sets of values and the people that don't, and it that can be like swayed really easily one way or another with whatever the trend is at the time.
Yeah.
Versus people that are a little bit more questioning and look at things a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So I would say that our values are what's and those values are derived, of course, from our upbringing, our faith, our core beliefs, whether it's a basis in some sort of like philosophy, and I think we've talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah.
Not to beat a dead horse, but
I guess we have. I'm just thinking, like, I guess on a broader scheme, like stuff behind the scenes, like, man, I'm really blanking.
you talking about the influence on society, or are you talking about
Maybe a little bit of like technological stuff or whatnot. Like for
okay.
example,
Oh, maybe
let me give you like two examples.
Okay.
Like, so I don't know if people realize this, but elevator buttons have not, like the closed door button hasn't worked like since like the 1980s, I think it was.
That's not
Do you
true.
know about that? Well,
Yeah, yes,
no,
I
it
do.
is.
Yes, I do, but that's only partly true.
It's only partly true.
Yeah,
no, it works, but you need the key. And do you know why that is? Do you know why they like stopped making it work?
I've worked on elevators, so
Well, I know that you know that, but do you know why like it actually doesn't work when you or I push it and it takes the extra key? This is because of the Americans with Disabilities Act said that to give them more time, people with wheelchairs and that.
okay. So what they're assuming is that I'm on the other end and I see a guy wheeling up to it, and I'm like, no,
Yeah, right.
I can't have that in here with me.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I actually have been in an elevator where it's still.
Yeah. I'm
still
sure
works,
there's still
just-
some old ones, but like I
Yeah,
think when they build new ones, yeah, you basically have to turn the key, and it's just funny to me that people like go through their days, and I guess stoplights are a good example because a lot of the buttons actually don't necessarily work. They're just going to change whether they're going to change. It's not going to change the light faster for you.
Yeah.
Like somebody being in
You
a
talk
turn
about
lane.
on the crosswalk.
Yeah, for a crosswalk.
Yeah.
And to me, I think it gives people like a sense that they're in control, and it's just kind of weird to me. But like that's kind of what I'm getting at. Can you think of any other like examples of like guide rails, like maybe not so much societal, like to hold up values or whatever?
I'm going to give you an example that's hilarious, actually. So there was there's more than one example like this. So there was a machine that an operator swore to the maintenance guy that when he hit this button, it recalibrated something on the machine, and then it would run better. Okay.
Yeah.
It was resetting something when he did this or whatever, and he wouldn't do it too frequently. But when he started having problems, he'd go and reset that. This guy heard about it, and the guy said that The operator told him, he said that this won't, this button doesn't work or whatever because a light lit up when he did it or whatever.
Yeah.
This maintenance guy literally wired it up to just turn the light on and nothing else.
That's
Just to make him happy. And that guy was happy.
Oh yeah.
Because he swore that fixed some unforeseen ghost of a problem every time he hit it.
Yeah.
And the maintenance guy was just like, well, it makes him happy.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't have to hear about it anymore. And because this particular function didn't even exist, the thing that it affected wasn't even on the machine anymore, kind of. It's one of those situations. And I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was absolutely funny. And I heard it from the operator myself when I went and I looked at it and stuff. I thought that was just...
You put your meter on it, just...
Yeah. Because what led to it was I was troubleshooting a problem, and I was like, what the heck is this for? This doesn't look like it does anything. And then he explained it. He's like, just don't let the cat out of the bag kind of thing. So that's a funny example of something similar to that.
Yeah.
But the sense of control on things, we often feel like we have like a sense of choice or a sense of control or and that gives us some sort of comfort, like when you go into like the grocery store and there's 18 different kinds of peanut butter on the shelf.
Yeah, and they're really, especially with a brand or whatever, there's not that much difference between them, right?
Yeah.
Like they change one ingredient. Headache medicines are the worst. If you look at them,
Yep.
it'll just be like different things of like the actual active pain reliever, and then like Excedrin's a great one. There's like 5 different Excedrins. They just have different levels of caffeine in them.
Well, working in manufacturing like we do, I can honestly tell you there's a lot of things that are just rebranded.
Well, let me tell you one thing from having worked in retail. A lot of I'll just say Target, Walmart, and that, depending on where they get their milk from, actually for the most part, the difference between that $2. Well, I don't know what milk is like now. With inflation, but yeah, it's worth it to just grab the cheaper gallon of milk, because like literally in working and receiving, the people that drop milk off, they just stop the line and change the label out. It's the same gallon of milk. It's like, I think at the one place I worked, there was like 3 tiers of the same, like delivered by the same thing. That's the same whole milk.
Yeah.
Those $2, $3, $4 a gallon was all the same milk, but they had to have the $2 one for a wick.
Yeah.
And that, so.
Yep. Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, in that sense of like of choice, like you have some sort of control over it. Not saying you don't have any control, but like there's a lot of things in our lives that I think that we feel like we've got a sense of choice or control in it, and everything we don't.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just smoke and mirrors. A lot of it's just imagery. A lot of it's what's fed to us. People have the perception that something's value. It's a perceived value, right?
Again, in retail, I mean?
In retail,
you could charge the same, like $20 more for the same product, and people will think it's.
They'll think it's a higher value. They'll think that this must be the better product and stuff. And I think we all fall into this.
Oh yeah, I definitely have, and I know the games.
Oh yeah, so, like for tools, right? For tools for us and everything. There are certain tools that you should be willing to spend the money on for a higher quality product. I'm not saying you should spend more money on it. I'm saying that if the higher quality product, like a good multimeter, for example, if it's a good, well-known, trustworthy type of thing, like shout out to Fluke, they've made good meters for a very, very long time. They make a wonderful product. That's the kind of thing that because you have to test voltages and make sure that it's dead so that you're not touching live stuff. I want it to be a very, very trustworthy meter.
Yeah.
I'm willing to spend some money on that, whatever, because it affects my life and my livelihood.
Yeah.
However, there are certain tools that I'm like, okay, you're going to go get the Snap-on crowbar that's costs
going to break just as easy as
that costs $4,000, or you're going to go get the $10 one.
As the Harbor Freight one.
Or go get the Harbor Freight one, and then if it does break, you buy a second one or whatever. Who cares? It's like, so you've got a bit of that going on.
So, yeah, I just think that that's a mental pathway that we all fall into, and people don't realize how dangerous that is. Like, we're always talking about thinking, so I kind of want to move into how you think, like something like that could be used like more nefariously and is being used.
I think I get
Just our
what you're.
perception, yeah, of just something so inane,
So so nowadays our perceptions of a lot of stuff are manipulated, and it's very easy to fall into these traps. So I don't blame people that highly intelligent people that fall into the same things, because they might be like, well, I read this study, or I did this thing, the Keys study at the turn of the century that started the low fat craze, for example.
yeah,
Like everybody was like low fat, low fat, low fat. Well, I'm going to tell you that, and everybody knows, not a doctor, not giving medical advice, everything like that. By now, people know about the whole. It was paid for by certain industry to get the outcome that they desired,
yeah,
because they wanted to demonize this thing that wasn't bad for you, to or it's more complicated than that. You can't just say this thing's good for you, this thing's bad for you, whatever.
yeah,
But it was to push up. I remember, dude, there was like, heck, you might even be able to still find stuff today. There's all over candy. It would be like low fat,
yeah,
no fat, like on candy and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay,
yeah.
okay, that I'm sure that's wonderful for you, but. And it was sort of like pseudo manipulating it, going like, oh, I'm a health food or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm pretty sure that Snickers are not a health food,
Yeah.
But
Just because they don't contain fat doesn't mean that they don't.
well,
or,
Snickers, I guess, does contain
They
fat
don't
'cause
cause
of
your
peanuts,
body
but-
to store the sugars as fat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. You might get diabetes.
Yeah,
but,
right.
And
It's like, oh, it's a low fat. It must be healthy for me.
and then then the demonization of cholesterol and
How
stuff.
about like supplements? Like there's
Oh,
supplements that are great. I'm not going to speak out against all of them, and I'm not going to sit here and say they're a cure all.
No.
People will use the term like it's all natural. It's got to be good for you. Well, there's a lot of all natural things that can kill you in very small doses.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely. And and I like good quality foods. I understand. I don't want everything sprayed with a ton of pesticides. I get it. I don't get me wrong, I get it.
But yeah, going back to what was that study you were talking about? Key?
Yeah, there's the Keys. I think it was
Yeah. So we're gonna drop a link in the bottom here. And
yeah,
it's,
so
what is it? Chocolate chocolate diet, or chocolate can help you lose weight, and yeah, basically you can watch the video. It goes over how a guy like basically got a peer-reviewed study pushed through, and everybody ran with it.
was it peer reviewed though?
Well, or I don't know. If
Actually, I
I
don't
thought they
think
said it might have not been
I
peer-reviewed.
don't
but,
think it actually got peer reviewed. I think that's one of the things, was is it wasn't peer reviewed.
But yeah, his whole
But the
point,
media-
he
the
wasn't a
media ran with it.
scientist,
No.
nothing. He just wanted to see how far he could go with it in the science journals.
Yeah. No.
So,
Well, he I wouldn't say he wasn't a scientist per se. I mean, he was
was
a biology major.
very
kind of
minimalist
guy.
science.
Yeah, yeah.
Not.
But what he did was he did this study. Is very controlled, and you watch the video for it. Or
On a
whatever.
very small sampling.
It's like 2 minutes long, guys. So, and the funny thing about it is that this guy's putting the truth out, and it's only got like 260 views or something like that on this particular video. Well made video too.
Yeah.
And it's only got like 260 views and stuff like that. I made sure to like his video, and I'm
Yeah.
sharing it with everybody else because I'm like, it's a good video.
But I'm sure people aren't clicking on it because they
No.
don't want to believe it.
No.
So that's why I'm going to move into like why we fall into this. I think it falls under confirmation bias, right?
Oh yeah.
So confirmation bias is that you tend to look for things that
There
confirm
you
what you already believe, rather than trying to challenge yourself
Yeah.
or a belief, to see if it holds true. So
Yeah, so confirmation bias, we all fall into this. We all like to get the proverbial pat on the head or pat on the back or whatever that tells us that we're thinking right and that our thought process on everything is correct and stuff. And it's so strange because I think everybody actually kind of gets a little bit uncomfortable when there's something that they believe to be true is challenged.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this a little bit before.
And you kind of have a visceral reaction to it. But I think it's very, very important to keep an open mind. To that term, like keep an open mind, well, that thing's been definitely twisted around as well. But I think it's very
I think
important.
think for yourself's a better way of putting
Think for yourself, yeah.
Keep an open mind is
Yeah,
like,
be open to the fact that you may have gotten bad information,
yeah,
and it's not your
that
fault
doesn't
that
mean
you
you have
got
to
bad
try
information.
everything under the sun if it sticks.
Yeah, yeah. So in confirmation bias, we're going through and we're listening to our CNN, or we're listening to our Fox News, or we're reading articles, and they sound like they're referring to a study and everything like that. We're not going to get into the stuff around COVID. We're just going to avoid that subject altogether right now, because it's just a minefield as far as being able to say things on YouTube, on that particular platform and stuff.
Yeah.
But in truthfulness and honesty about it or whatever, people were all around that were spitting out, like, studies left and right and everything like that.
Yeah.
Some people were actually citing peer-reviewed studies and they were getting canceled and taken down.
Yeah.
And then other people were citing really, really poor studies. One study in particular that stuck out to me was a study by a guy, again, not a scientist. He was a contractor.
You're not a scientist, or this guy wasn't?
This wasn't a scientist.
Okay.
Contractor for the VA. It was a study on one of the things that was listed as being, for the treatment of COVID, but it wasn't listed as being a thing, wasn't accepted as a treatment for COVID. And he had claimed that it actually caused like more death by taking this thing and stuff like that. And it was like in 2 seconds of me looking up the study, I realized it was a bunk study.
Yeah.
I mean, just immediately. And it, for those that aren't familiar, don't be intimidated by looking at studies. There's some studies are pretty easy to read, and they spell out and they read out in layman terms like relatively easy. And some of them are quite wordy, and some of them can be very difficult to kind of get down into. But that was one of those cases. And as you get better at looking at these sort of things and disseminating information, you realize that, anybody can kind of come out with a study or whatever, and it might not even get peer reviewed. It may not get challenged. It may not even be very scientific in nature. Their whole setup may be twisted and just dishonest, and they may cherry pick data, and their whole methodology might be terrible.
Yeah.
And the media might run with it, or this group of media or that group of media, like a YouTuber or somebody on Facebook, whatever, wherever you're seeing this stuff, and they may take that and they may run with that narrative, like the chocolate study. Okay, so the chocolate study, people ran with, and it's probably like everybody probably like heard this now. They're like chocolate can help you lose weight. Like I've heard that. Like,
oh gosh,
like,
I thought it was silly when I first read it, but I
true.
didn't really dig into it. But it wasn't until I saw a video similar to the one we posted, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, and found out about the guy that did it. I was like, hey, that was like a big troll.
I felt like it, right?
So
yeah, and he did that a while ago.
Yeah.
And it was to test. It was to test this, basically the whole study review process and getting published and the published process and everything like that, and what that takes and how far it can go, and there's other people have done, because I know of a few other ones. Other people have tested the system like this similarly before, and have gotten published in higher level journals and stuff, and some of the respected journals, or were respected anyway. And you realize, you're like, okay, one, this system is not without flaw. It doesn't mean you throw it all out. I think that there's wonderful studies done. I think that there's a lot of work that goes into some of these. Some of them were done at a very large scale, and they're respectable studies. So I don't think you throw everything out, but you have to be careful. You have to be careful of what's being run and everything, because does it pass the smell test, or is your confirmation bias just going along with it and agreeing with it and everything like that? So I think it's important. I'm not saying you have to become a conspiracy theorist and question everything and be like, oh no, you know.
Well, when people say I do my own research, like actually research, don't say I read some headlines and that's what they said.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're free to do whatever you want, but that's my suggestion.
Yeah. Oh man,
Yeah. So
I
I
I
wanted
do my own research on Reddit
I
and
wanted to
Facebook and Twitter. I do my own research because
yeah.
because because CNN told me this and
Yeah.
therefore I believe it. That's not research.
But yeah, like especially with anything medical, it's probably always a good idea to talk to your doctors or specialists and that. And that.
And take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
Take it with a grain of salt because information changes.
yeah,
People get an
yeah.
update in
You gotta
information.
do what's best for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about like in movies, like the whole idea of what suspension of disbelief is.
Yes.
It's like when you have to turn your brain off, because it's like something so ridiculous in a movie, or you're just gonna go crazy. I
Yeah.
think the more you know about a topic, depending on what you do, you might like see something and be like, oh, that can't happen in a movie. But like a plumber, like doing something in there. No, no, no. I think there's a lot of that. But even on a more basic level, like you have to do that to enjoy movies, right?
Oh, of course.
You
Yeah,
know,
I agree with
um,
you.
I guess I have it in my mind that reality TV, and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Or WWE wrestling or anything like that, right? Like you got
Yeah,
about reality TV and the wrestling, the fake wrestling and
yeah.
stuff like that or whatever. But I'm not knocking on people
No, I'm not.
enjoying it. I'm
Yeah,
just saying because, dude, I'll be honest with you, like Duck Dynasty with Psy and everything like that. It was
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah,
It's scripted stuff or whatever,
yeah,
but it's funny. It's just funny stuff that you could see you and your buddies or family and stuff like that. You could see that happening,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure because I'm always very critical, but I have it in my mind that maybe there's some people that don't turn that off,
Mm-hmm.
suspension of disbelief when they watch like reality TV and they think that, that's real life and that,
Oh yeah.
and we do that when we get on social media and stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's maybe not the right term, but I think it's the same, like, mental, like, pathos or whatever.
Well, that's very important though to spell out is that
Basically,
you
what's real and what's not.
what's
Right?
real and
But
what's
like,
not is
we
that
consume so much media, like we don't know when to turn it off and be like, oh, I mean, turn it off and on, what's
yep.
real and what's not. So,
Yep. And I think that especially nowadays, with the constant plug-in to media, whether it's on our phones, whether it's on our TVs, which really it's really just connected to the internet and everything because now we stream everything to our TVs and everything like that. Cable's kind of dying and just pretty much dead at this point. But what you're seeing is that people have this constant news feed. I remember when news was just like an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like an hour on this channel, maybe another hour on this channel, and that's pretty much it. And you had the newspaper, and that was kind of like that was about the it. That was all you really got from the news and stuff. If you really wanted to learn about a subject, expand on a subject, you had to go out of your way. You had to go to the library. You had to look stuff up. You had to try to figure out what was going on. You tried to get the news, national, maybe international news type of stuff or whatever. But it took a little bit more effort, but a lot more people did it because it wasn't as accessible. And now it's like it's being force fed to you like through a fire hose, right? Just this constant stream of news. It's like, and I I think it's part of the problem with feeding the agitation and the speed at which things move now and how much more quicker people seem to react and get agitated and just lose their minds over things is that it's like you can't get away from it. Your phone's dinging, it's telling you something, and
yeah.
this thing's going on, that thing's going on.
Well, I think the expediency of information too, like, makes us lazier at thinking. Like, we don't want to think. We just
Yes,
we want to.
that's my point, and I'm sorry I got really long-winded in it,
Well,
as
that's
I tend
fine.
to do.
That's fine. I was
But-
going over my notes. I mean,
but-
you might have actually started.
Yeah, so
said that.
I was getting really long-winded and getting to my point like I tend to do, but what it is that we're not getting a break from it, right? So it's like our brains are getting stuck in third gear, like it's stuck in that gear, right?
Yeah.
Like we're stuck in that mode of suspension of disbelief all the time.
Yeah.
So that's like our natural state of being.
Yeah.
We have our trusted sources.
We just don't question stuff because we're
Yeah.
like, that must be reality.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Heck, we don't have the time to question anything because we're not walking away. We're not disconnecting. We're not connecting with the real world in order to shut that process down. Because what we see in the real world, we don't suspend disbelief, right?
Yeah.
We see, we observe. There's really people there. We're really smiling. We're really meeting somebody. We're really talking. We see
Yeah.
that people are good and kind
Yeah.
and loving, and we you know, our neighbors, we get along with them. We want the same things.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what color they are. Doesn't matter who they sleep with. We, you know, we're happy. They're happy and stuff. And we're like, oh wow, man, life's a lot better. And then you turn on the internet. It's like, you know, and people are just going at each other like a couple rabid chinchillas, and on
Yeah.
Twitter fighting over.
So it might not
The
be
latest
such a
thing.
terrible thing to just shut all off every once in a while and, you know, disconnect and
Well,
like
you know-
have a real thing, right? You know, maybe that's a solution to some of you know,
You've
this
watched
madness, right?
You've watched Player One, right? The movie.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's and for all the people that read the books, sorry.
It's way better, right?
Yeah, I know. The
I'm
books
sure
are way
you're
better.
ready to Player 2 once that's made into a
Yeah.
movie. You know?
so in Ready Player One, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, one of the things they do is they shut down. You know, Ready Player One is like the future of like the metaverse or whatever, where everybody's living in this virtual reality thing all the time.
Got the headsets on.
Got the headsets on and the haptic gear and everything with the feedback. Well, towards the end, they actually shut down the stuff for certain periods of time because he realized that it was so unhealthy to
Yeah.
live your whole world in this virtual reality.
That's funny. I didn't
You know?
remember that much about that movie.
Yeah, that's actually the part that stuck out to me the most. Actually,
That's
about it
kinda
was
funny.
that
You didn't read the book, did
observation.
you?
No, I didn't.
okay.
No, I take that back. I did read some of the book. I did
Okay.
read some of it. I didn't read the whole thing or whatever. But that unplugging and disconnecting from it, I think is very, very important. I realized in my own life or whatever is the more that I disconnected from like social media and things of that nature, like it was better for my well-being. It was like better for my stress. It also, I think, made me a much more objective thinker, and was because I'm not constantly being inundated with this stuff or whatever and kind of getting programmed into this one thought process. What I can do is I can, you know, some headline comes across, you know, you can't get away from it. Even if you turned your phone off, you're going to run into it somewhere, or somebody's going to ask you, did you hear about this or that? And what I tend to do is I'll stop and I'll consider it, and I'll be like, does that sound right or not? And how does that affect me? How does that affect my life? And is it worthy of maybe taking a few minutes to look into and see what both sides of the argument are and everything like that, and then just move on. Just
Yeah.
move on, because I'm at the point now where I am really, really done with just the online fighting and stuff like that. I think it's really, really just, it's gone way, way too far. It's spilling out into the real world now. So
Yeah. So when I was looking up some of the different biases we have, I came across it was like the three, what was it, cognitive biases by some article. I think I'll include the link just for reference, but they talk about sampling bias. I thought that one's funny. I don't really want to get into that, but it's like, it says sampling bias. It's a little graphic, and it says, yes, I love responding to surveys. No, I toss them in the bin, and basically at the bottom it's like, we received 500 responses and found that people love responding to across the board love responding to surveys. So. But then I get to the bottom and something I'd never even heard of, and it's like called the Brilliance Bias. And speaking of like actual oh my gosh, you know, scientific studies or whatnot, it was a writer that came up with this word. So I kind of threw it out, you know. But it says the tendency to think of brilliance as a male trait, and I'm like, that's rather misandrous, I think. So I was curious to look, because there might be a word for it. I just haven't found it. Like, I think that it's, you know, more reaching than that. I think so. There's superiority bias or illusory, but that's when you think you're better than you are. Like, it's something,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
everybody's below you, stupid, or like you're really not competent at something, but you act like you are. You know?
yeah,
But the opposite of that, whatever the word is, I just couldn't find it. I didn't have enough time to do the research. Like, I feel like there is a lot of instances where people, like beautiful people, get the pass a lot, or people tend to think they're more competent than they are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard about
Or
that.
people like look down on a group of people because they just think they're dumb. Like, what I'm saying?
Oh
Like,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
that's definitely a
And
thing.
I'm sure that that's some type of cognitive biases. I just haven't found the word for it, but I don't. I
Well,
kind of just want to introduce that, so
well,
maybe you could.
that sort of bias is like, I mean, and it's acceptable nowadays. As a matter of fact, I brought this up in another cast we did, but the the bias towards like it, flyover states, the people that are live in the country, Southerners, that kind of thing and stuff. There's it's okay to like call them stupid and
Yeah.
things like that or whatever, and it's this really
Well, I'm broaching on
this
how like
bigotry.
people that should be are considered allies, like talk down to like minorities and stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like
that really
really
comes
ugly.
off as I'm
It's
superior to you. Like that.
yeah,
That's probably the opposite.
yeah.
That the illusory or
Racism,
superiority.
racism by low expectations and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It just it I don't I don't like any of that. I've never liked any of that. It's always been ugly, but it seems to be more mainstreamed
Yeah.
in the last several
Yeah, it
years.
just kind of irked me that because it was some writer that came up with what was it called again? Brilliance Bias, because it's very male like oriented. But I think people with insecurities like tend to like probably like have that whatever the word is I'm looking for bias. If somebody's watching this as a psychologist, drop it in a comment. But I think it's inferiority versus superiority. Like if they feel inferior on the sense that like, oh, you're smarter than me because you're that. Well, and then on the other side, if people are looking down on people, it's like a
Well,
superiority versus inferiority complex. But I think it comes from the same mind, set
according to
mindsets.
my research, everybody became a medical expert about 2 years ago on every social media platform. I literally, oh God, I even hate admitting that I was on Twitter, but I've been going on Twitter to try to help promote our business side of things and stuff. So I was engaging and hoping to grow some sort of presence there, more as an experiment to see is it worth trying to advertise on this? Would I get the kind of engagement? I think the clear answer is no. I think it's a waste of time and money. So I will be uninstalling that off of my phone. But I got into a little bit of a debate with somebody, and it was just, and I kept it civil. I don't like to, I don't want to, I don't personally insult people. I don't call them stupid, anything like that. That's just not my MO. And I mean, I'm not telling you what I'm thinking in my head, but I'm not gonna throw that down on there. And so I kept, I was keeping it civil, but the one or two people that were attacking me on there and stuff like that were not. There was personal insults and everything like that. And I mean, they just thought like I was just some, stupid, country bumpkin, hick, whatever, dummy that didn't know anything about anything science wise or anything like that. And none of these, they don't know who they're talking to. They have
Yeah.
no clue who they're talking to.
Right.
And I'm
Well, like we've talked about
it's
before in other episodes, but I'll just say it again. Like looking down on a farmer is pretty silly. You don't know how intelligent
nope.
they are, and if they're a successful farmer, they know
They're
a lot
probably
about a
pretty
lot.
intelligent
They're
guy.
very good
Yes.
business.
Yeah. They might speak with a country accent, but that don't make them a dummy.
Yeah.
And for myself or whatever, it was like, it was entertaining to me in a lot of ways because I was like, here's this person that thinks they're so much more intelligent. They were clearly wrong about what they were talking about. And that's not my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, the objective facts of the matter was that they were clearly wrong about it and stuff. And I was just showing, hey, this is the evidence behind that. I mean, literally, they would claim one thing, and I would be like, okay, well, that's not true because of this or whatever, and because they were claiming, oh, it was this group's conspiracy or whatever from these news sources were all bad, and I was like, it was from the other side news that reported it, that broke the story or whatever. So I don't think that's true at all. And then it just quickly degraded into, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, that kind of thing. And I look at that and I'm like, you are assuming that I am less intelligent than you because I disagree with you.
Yeah.
I can be wrong about something. Don't get me, I could be mistaken about something. I might be wrong. I might be misinformed. I might have read some bad stuff or whatever. But don't assume that you are more intelligent than somebody else. Don't assume for a second like, oh, I get better information, everything like that, because you end up falling into these traps.
Yeah.
And are tricked a lot easier when you start to get that sort of pride and that haughtiness and like, oh, I'm so much smarter and quicker. These people don't know my background. They don't know who I am. They don't know what I've been through. They don't know where my intellect lies. And I found it entertaining in some ways because I was like, you're not only mistaken, but you're pounding the drum that I'm the dumb one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. Twitter is a wasteland. Don't waste your time.
Yeah.
It is. It's an absolute wasteland. Unless you work for some social media company and you're forced to go on there and forced to do stuff or whatever because you have to. I just wouldn't even bother. I mean, people went on Twitter to get news because people are they're always like, that's kind of the place where everybody was sharing news.
Yeah.
The problem is that it created these like bifurcated bubbles within there, and now it's like all people do is like troll. It's like if you get to a certain height, so if you go on there and you pull up like Ben Shapiro, for example, and most people know who Ben Shapiro are. So he's a conservative commentator on things, and if you go on and you look at Ben Shapiro's stuff, most of the posts are just trolls. They're just people that are disagreeing with him and yelling and shouting and saying how stupid conservatives are. And I'm like, what point are you proving?
Yeah.
What point are you proving in doing this? You're not accomplishing anything. And the same goes for, people on the right or whatever. It's like, if you're being respectful and you're saying, I respectfully disagree, this is why, this is the evidence that I have or whatever, you're going to get attacked.
Yeah.
And I realize that. I realize that like the Twitter is not the place for truth, which is funny to me because they were canceling people and they're trying to be the arbitrators of truth in some weird twisted fashion. And I'm like, you guys aren't doing anything that's really productive for society. It's just a waste.
Yeah. Before moving on to anything way too political, because I think we might get there with the next step. What are some ways? Well, I'll give an example and then I'll throw it to you. But not so much the media. Well, I guess Hollywood and that, like basically, I'll say like the body image of women or whatever that's like always been in magazines or that it's an unfair vision of what women should look like. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here. Like basically portraying an image that like isn't realistic. Like for me, using that example or whatever, when I was like taking psychology in college, I literally got attacked by people because we did this little thing. It was like a chart of like body sizes, like for women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because guys tended to pick. It was about like 10 body shapes. It didn't have like a face.
Oh, I've seen some of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen.
So
some of these.
you'll have like.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Medium up to, I guess, whatever you want to call like morbidly obese. Down to almost anorexic. And
yeah.
It's funny because the guys tended to pick. From what maybe was the average, like in that little thing, like one or two to this side, and women pick like one or two to this side.
Yeah.
But I pointed out over 20, 25 years ago that there are unfair expectations on men in society, similar,
Yep.
And I got attacked by everybody. They were like, no, it's just women. And it's funny because now, like,
women.
now that social media and that, like, apparently there is like body dysmorphia in that in males. I mean, it always has been, I think, but we just don't talk about stuff like that. But I straight up got attacked because I could not gain weight for the life of me. I was 140, 6'3" for how long? 30, 35 years of my life. I just couldn't gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd eat. You know,
Dude.
but yeah, examples of that where it's like we paint a picture. I guess, like, can you think of any other thing without stepping too far into like the political realm or whatever, that we like paint these pictures that are just not
Well, I
like
mean,
what's the word, not abject, is it abject reality, like
objective
real, yeah,
or
like
subjective.
it's subjective,
Subjective is opinion. Objective
is like more
yeah,
actual
fact.
realistic,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Water's wet. It'd be objective.
Hmm.
You know, um, the best topping on pizza is pineapple and mushrooms.
Yeah.
That would be subjective.
Yeah.
But it's a subjective fact.
Olives and mushrooms, my bro.
Yeah. So there, that I threw that one out there for my wife. So, different, you know, societal. I mean, if you're referring to different sort of expectations, like societal expectations, and where that goes, how that's pushed.
Yeah, or where it's apparent, like in that case, like that males have probably always had that.
Oh yeah, because like
Can you think of any other like examples like that where we've just always pushed this narrative, like one way, but really it affects like everybody.
um
Because that's like a very personal one to me. But I've tried to like think of other examples, but
well
and I know they must exist.
well, access to higher education. You
Yeah,
mean-
I'm not even talking about male versus female.
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah. Okay, so but now my mind's stuck in that though.
Right.
I hate it when you get
well,
like
you can go on about what you were just
now
saying.
it's like stuck in that. But so I would say there's an expectation of like the quality of living
Yeah.
for people. I will keep it non-gender specific and try to stay out of politics. Keeping up with the Joneses is a real thing.
Yeah.
I think we all can recognize that. I mean, so we all have this sort of, like, I shouldn't say we all do. That's not a fair assessment, but there's definitely a good chunk of society that has this sort of unfair assessment of what they should be making, how they should be living, the size of house they should have,
Yeah.
the type of car they should have, as far as luxury or bigger or newer or whatever and stuff. And we have this sort of accepted, like, this is the thing that I need to accomplish, or I've failed, right? So whether we're talking about weight or we're talking about money, right?
Yeah.
This is the ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody, again, I shouldn't say everybody because that's not true. That's not fair. Sorry.
It's a common desire or
It's a
something like
common thing, and I feel like it's a trap. I feel like
Yeah.
it's a trap. But it's this common thing where you need to make more to be happy, right?
that. Yeah.
Not having enough can certainly be very, very stressful and lead to misery.
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now, once your needs are met and you're not struggling, you've got some savings for an emergency and things like that or whatever, it doesn't matter how much more you make. It will not make you happier.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not going to make you happier. If you live within your means and everything, but there's this ideal, and I think a lot of that's programming, a lot of that is seeing, here's the new car, here's the bigger house or whatever, and people are up to their eyeballs in debt.
Yeah.
And that's a very American thing now too. It's a huge amount of people, no matter how much they
Our
make.
economy is based on spinning off more debt.
Yeah,
just for
yeah.
that very that trap we've fallen into.
Yep.
So
And it's a very, very dangerous thing. Dangerous thing for our economy. It destabilizes our entire country, our entire economy. It is not a stable system. So what we're doing is that we're allowing ourselves to be kind of drawn by media, social media.
Diamonds are forever.
Diamonds are forever.
That was a
Yeah.
a big thing back in the day. Bacon actually was not a sought after meat until they really went after it. To try to glamorize it and stuff.
Oh my gosh, I love bacon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pause it just for a second, and then I'll be right back. Just bear with us, guys. And we're back.
Yep. So we were talking about bacon. That pause there, seemed like half a second for y'all. It was about 3 hours our time. Not really. It was like
Did it pause?
2 minutes. Yeah, no, it did.
Okay.
Don't hit it again.
So the
Either
timer
that or
went
they're
on.
gonna have an eyeful and be looking around all dumb. So
Oh
anyway,
well, we're not re-recording.
yeah. So I guess commercialism is the word I'm looking for, that pushed these unrealistic expectations of stuff that we fell into that trap. Obviously the desire by companies to sell their product more effectively.
Yeah, but
Which in and of itself isn't an evil thing, but we put too much of our personal value, right?
Yes. Yes.
Into stuff. That's where I feel like that gets dangerous. I don't know. Did you have any more to add to that? Because I think I might move on to the next part.
Yeah. So the whole idea behind it, these things wouldn't be effective. They wouldn't waste their money on it if we didn't accept it as well.
Yeah.
So we can't always just blame the greedy corporations.
Yeah. We've said it
that's a
time and time
cop-out.
before.
That's a
We're
cop-out.
just as guilty as
we're just
the
as
CEOs
guilty.
of a company because we fall into the trap and
because
we choose to stay in it.
spend our money. We vote with our money. We say, okay, that works for me. I'm going to spend my money with this sort of thing. If it wasn't effective, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I
it
think
wouldn't be effective if we
a
had
lot of the more recent, changes in advertising has really kicked people in the butt because we're stuck in that, right? Trying to make more diverse. They should have been doing it all along, some of these things, because it would have been more normalized. But they want to act like we're the victims, right? Or I mean, they're the victims and we're the guilty party because we have toxic, tendencies or whatever, right?
yes, I'm a toxic.
Yeah.
If anybody ever wants to know, I probably fit the definition of toxic masculinity for
Look at that beard.
a lot of things.
He's probably got a lot of testosterone going around. He shaved, he shaved completely,
3 hours ago.
Yeah,
exactly. I sneezed and this happened. So no, a lot of that stuff that to me, I guess I'd still be, because I'm a traditional guy, I would still be labeled as a toxic, I'd have toxic masculinity because I still open the door for people and I still think that women and children should be protected first, and how toxic of me or whatever, but I also believe that men and women have different roles in the relationship and in marriage, and that's okay. I'm not saying one's less than the other or anything like that. But we're built differently.
Yeah.
And because I have that opinion, then I must be chock full of toxic masculinity or whatever.
Well, I think on the flip side, me personally, I'm that guy that would be pushing women and children overboard on the Titanic, to get that spot on the boat, before it hits the
Equal
iceberg.
opportunity for all.
Not really, but I kind of want a little visual aid here, what's that saying, if you only look at the tip of the iceberg, talking about the Titanic, I don't know, something about that, you're not going to see the whole picture. I always thought that was dumb, so I'm going to have a visual aid here. What is this right here?
It's pee.
Yeah, it just as easily could be. My point is, people might say that's a bottle of water. I mean, here, I'll open it, that's
Now
cracking
you got
the
pee
seal,
on
right?
yourself.
But without having this little label on it that says it's water, it's just as easy. It could be something that kills you, right? Because you didn't look at, sure, that's what's right there, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be more aware of the whole package, not just.
I get your point.
Yeah, but
I get your point.
I kind of wanted to move into the even more nefarious part of why that's not great. on a societal level is yeah, the commercialism, has like screwed stuff up, and I think it's been just so effective. Like, but what's the next level after that? Like the political realm, right?
Programming its people, man.
Yeah, a nice little thing called manufactured consent. I think it's been going on for a long time, but I think what was it, Noam Chomsky or whatever?
Yeah, Noam Chomsky.
Dropping a video on the bottom there, and this
Yep.
is nothing new. This video's probably from what, the 70s or 80s. Like some of the clips in
Some
it.
of the clips in it, yeah,
it's a
from the
guy that
70s.
likes
It's a
to
short
that's
video. Again, it's a short video, so I recommend checking it out.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I'll throw it to you a little bit to like kind of discuss what manufactured consent really.
So there's a factory over here, and they make consent bars, and there's a stamp that comes down and just manufactures consent.
Yeah.
Because we work in manufacturing. No, manufactured consent, in a nutshell, and people don't realize that it's happening to them, is really, it's done by the information that you're fed. Okay? So, Noam Chomsky in one of the clips actually used the Iraq War as a good reference. And so for most adults now, some of you guys might be too young to know or not been born yet, for that little portion of it or whatever. But Vietnam War too. It happened at the Gulf of Tonkin incident and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, which was an outright lie, and Iraq having weapons of mass destruction and things like that or whatever. So, it was like implied that Saddam Hussein was responsible for the attack on the Twin Towers on 9/11.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like ran with, and
Yeah.
so people were like looking to punch somebody after our country was attacked, and rightfully so. I understand people's anger, and
Yeah.
I was angry.
I
I
was-
didn't, it was disgusting. But
I was on the East Coast. I saw it in real time. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of the rest of the nation was still sleeping. I
Yeah.
think you did too.
yes, I did, and I remember that day. Most people
Yeah.
remember that day.
Definitely.
And
After Pearl Harbor was like one of the worst
Yeah.
days in American history. I
Yeah.
don't care what some of the most recent stuff is.
Yeah.
Like,
all the recent
You
stuff,
wanna
people are
try to
like,
compare
that
to
was
that.
worse than 9/11.
that's
No,
absolutely disgusting.
That's-
I mean,
that's
I'll
gross.
give the pass to somebody that. Well, no, they need to do more research. That
Yeah.
maybe wasn't alive or like old enough to even know what was going on. But,
Yeah,
like,
some of
when
us.
you watch people jumping out of
Some of us
the
watched
50th
that
floor
live.
of
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
Not a lot compares to that,
yeah,
except for maybe
gut wrenching, man. Just gut wrenching horror, and for that to happen on American soil and stuff. So we had our consent manufactured. To go right along with it. We were fed a narrative. That narrative was a false narrative. But we were fed a narrative that this is the thing, these are the actions that must be taken, and most of the country got behind it. People don't want to admit that. People don't want to admit that they're wrong. Politicians never admit when they're wrong.
Yeah.
And for people, it's pretty
I don't think
in-
elites do
individual.
either, because they just always what's for the better.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
What they think is better.
Oh yeah,
You know,
and I don't have a problem saying that I was wrong. I was wrong about the Iraq War.
You just got to shut up and listen to them.
Yeah. Now the thing is that I will also say that I changed my position on the Iraq War very early.
Yeah.
But that was because of the work by Glenn Greenwald.
Yeah.
And Glenn Greenwald was what back then we would have called like a liberal leftist type of reporter or whatever. But the thing is that he was just an objective journalist.
Yeah.
And when he reported the stuff, even though he wasn't necessarily on this other team that I sided more with, I said, he's not lying. He's telling the truth, and he's reporting the facts.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what my bias says. It doesn't matter whatever it says. I looked at it and said, this man is telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that combined with the expansion of powers and it was used to create the Department of Homeland Security, completely changed our the whole thing around air travel in the United States.
It wasn't it. It was more the Democratic Party that actually wanted the sunrise provisions on TSA at the time, right? Because I seem to remember, right?
I believe so. Probably that.
'Cause I'm
Maybe
really wondering
maybe it
what
might have just
more.
been like Ron Paul.
Yeah,
It might
yeah,
have
maybe
just,
it's somebody more independent, but I swear
it's
it
probably
seemed like it
one
was.
libertarian,
Yeah,
if I remember right.
yeah.
But
It felt like it was more the Democratic, like side of stuff. What is it? What's that term?
well, they were cautioning,
Blue
yeah,
collar Democrats, or
yeah, yeah.
what
They
was
were
it?
cautioning. They were a lot more precautious
Yeah,
about
and
that.
I just remember the more hawkish, people like, no, we gotta strengthen the security state,
Yep.
to the
Yep.
point at what ends now, where the unthinkable is,
Yeah.
like
And so we're 20 years later, and more than 20 years later, and we're still cleaning up this mess. So what's going on is that because the in large part a very very large portion of the population went along with this and is going to manufactured consent was because they were played a certain message. The reality was made a certain way to them. Their perception of reality was manipulated in such a way that this was the thing that they would get behind, this is the thing that they would support and everything. They would vote for that person that was going to get behind this thing, and if you talked against it, you were just some liberal loon, or some tree hugging hippie, or whatever, right?
yeah,
And just for everybody, Glenn Greenwald is a very very good journalist, and I think he's an objective journalist. I still have a lot of respect for him. The left is attacking him now. The right was attacking him then. That's a
yeah,
pretty good sign.
yeah.
He's
He
always
might be doing a good
challenged.
job.
Yeah, the establishment has never liked him.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just the way it is. But the way that I see things is that when guys like that are coming under attack, it's really good to look and see who's doing the attacking,
Yeah,
and it kind of gives you a barometer of where you might be on things.
yeah,
So I think that people need to stop and think about it, think about where their own biases are taking them.
yeah. And how much of our liberties we're giving away
Yep.
to give power to one
Unelected
side or the
bureaucrats.
other. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think moving forward in the future, people like talk about deep fakes and how dangerous those can be, which obviously they can. But kind of dipping back into what we've been talking through the whole thing, like cognitive thing and suspension of disbelief. It's all going to come together. Like we need to turn our brains back on. When you have like a gut feeling, that something's not right. Like you need to like listen to it. Uh, I'm not gonna dig into it too deep on this one, but Uncanny Valley, like look that up. But it's like the normalization of like stuff that seems off, and like when you see something, it has a lot to do with the part of our brain that with faces and that, like, but it applies to a lot of stuff. Like just when your brain thinks something's off, kind of listen to that and maybe research it. Yeah, because deep fakes and that, like, they're gonna get better.
Oh yeah.
Basically AI that's going to make convince you that a politician really said something, or that, like, I think it's going to be a long time before, like, myself or whatever, because I'm so critical of everything, and I'm really good at I could almost be like a human lie detector sometimes. I feel like, and I know that I'm not the only one. There is people that are more sensitive to that. Like, I haven't seen a deep fake yet that I couldn't pick out, and I think the ones that could is probably where they take the actual politician and alter it. But I don't know. Look at some of the deep fakes out there. Like, what is that Tom Cruise? That one's pretty good, but if you really watch it, because it's not the actual actor, you can kind of see the other guy's face in it. Or some of the deep fakes where they, like Spider-Man with Al Capone, or not Al Capone, but one of those gangsters. Is the main character. I think was one of them. You can kind of see the other actors, like expressions in it, even though it looks clearly like the other actor. If you actually just look at the way they like form the words and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the AI might get to a point where, even the best. What are the people? There's actually doesn't like the FBI and stuff, like the people that are very
Using
can read body language to like just
Yeah,
a
they use
crazy amount.
they use
Yeah.
very very good interrogators.
Yeah,
That
but yeah, I imagine those people could pick out deep fakes like for a while
I agree,
longer.
yeah.
But yeah, see, that's why I know like I have like a
I
little
agree.
more sensitivity to that, but I haven't had like official training. You know, and I'm not trying to set
yeah,
myself up,
I would think that will be able to be picked out for a little
but yeah,
while.
if you're like watching something, you're like that seems off. You know, like I mean, I've seen stuff. You know, to be fair, like for both parties more recently, like propagandists, like deep fake stuff, or like they slowed down a video of what Pelosi to make her sound drunk. I mean, she already sounds a little bit off anyway when
yeah.
she talks, but like that's not cool. They just like slowed down
Well-
audio and kind of made it seem like she was slurring, and you know they've taken very particular pictures. You know, like 1 second it's like you know Trump like. You know, and there's a bunch of people like, you know, and then like 2 seconds later, if you know you actually like saw the thing, they're all like, you know,
Well,
messaging with propaganda. You know,
so
like,
that's going on now.
yeah,
What
but in
and
the
what they're
future,
doing
like
is
video,
what they're doing is selective editing.
Yeah.
Like when Joe Rogan got attacked for mentioning certain things, certain COVID treatments or whatever, and what was recommended to him or whatever. He wasn't giving medical advice and stuff like that. But and he came under attack. They lied about him and everything. Clearly lied about him. And there's still people today that don't believe that. That don't believe it was. They literally altered the coloration in the video
Yeah.
and in pictures to make him look sick,
Yeah.
to make him look more gaunt and like whiter in the face and everything, flushed out of
yeah,
color.
yeah, there's already some
And-
really basic ways that they've been doing that
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah,
actually.
and they're doing like
the media to be
yeah,
clear.
the media, yeah, they're doing, and then and I know we're trying to avoid the political things or whatever, but
Well, I just didn't want to jump right to political.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
You know, I
the
get what you're
fine-
saying. Like something.
the fine people lie.
Yeah.
Okay, that the media repeated that that President Biden like started off his campaign on and everything, and ran campaign ads about it and everything, was the fine people lie. Because if you go back and you actually watch the video in its entirety, you're like, oh, he didn't say that. That was not said that way. That's really really misconstrued. Whether you like Trump or not, that's neither here nor there. Just
Yeah.
be truthful about it. Don't lie. So you don't like if you're right about something. If you're right, you don't need to lie. You don't have to lie.
Yeah.
So when these things are going on and this manipulation is continuously going on,
Okay.
I think there's people that actively want to be lied to.
So
They
how,
just-
how,
they
how
want
can
to
you
be
tell
lied
when a
to.
politician's lying?
They're moving their lips.
Exactly.
They're moving their lips, guys.
You
All
just-
of them.
You just hope sometimes you know they tell the truth. You
Yeah.
know, like accidentally.
Yeah, exactly. They accidentally let something slip.
like Trump because he just couldn't keep his mouth shut.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
ever.
That's right. He just would come out and say it. There was a
What a braggart! I
Oh,
just could not
he would-
stand listening to that man talk. But you know,
We were-
like,
we were selling weapons. We were selling weapons to the Saudis. Yeah, we were selling weapons to the Saudis.
yeah,
And he just comes out and says it, and everybody's like, he just said the quiet part out loud. He was proud of it. He's just like, yeah.
How about some of the hot mic moments? Those are always fun.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the video of oh my gosh, Bush Jr. like flipping the bird because he didn't think he was, or maybe he knew, but they like caught it and he was just like, you know, up to the camera.
No, actually, I think
Oh,
I
you
heard
haven't?
about
yeah,
it.
I think there's a clip.
I think
on
I heard
yeah.
about it, but
But see, that's something now, you know, like they could probably do through a deep fake and, you know,
Oh,
push
yeah.
a narrative or whatever, you know, that maybe it didn't even happen. But
yeah.
that's
So if they're already altering the colors and they're editing the clip, it's a lie. What they're doing is that they're lying, dude. Once they're capable of doing these deep fakes and stuff, they'll spell the narrative however they want to spell the narrative. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Manufactured consent will become easier, and there will be a bunch of people that will be lining up. There will be a whole lot of sheeple that are going to line up and say yes, 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 because
on both sides, whatever
oh,
sides
absolutely,
in power,
absolutely.
like pushing the narrative, it
Absolutely.
tends to be, you know,
absolutely. But and in what you tend to see is that people whose BS meters are a little bit better, they tend to pick up on this stuff first and stuff. The guys like Glenn Greenwald and you know even Jimmy Dore, and these are guys I don't agree with on policy stuff and everything like that, but I think that they're being objective about stuff. You look at what when they're speaking about stuff and you're like, oh, okay, Like you're trying to just get to the truth of the matter, and I respect that. I don't agree with you on every policy thing, but I respect it. I respect that you're being truthful. And we're tired of getting fed a narrative. And here's the thing. I've got a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Okay? I think it's crumbling.
Yeah.
I think it's falling apart.
I do. I think
it's
as much as we're
completely falling apart.
I really hope that we don't feel like we're preaching. We're just kind of, it's our minds,
Yeah,
Take it as you will. But I do feel like and hope that, more people will like wade through the bullshit,
I think they are, though.
Like family members, that like you're
Yeah.
fighting with, like you just can't get it through to them, like even with kindness, that like maybe look a little bit more into stuff before you like, die on that sword or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
This is the hill I'm going to die on.
yeah,
So I think that it's falling apart. I think that I don't want to be biased or anything like that. I think that
well, we all like have biases.
we do all
like,
have our biases or whatever. It appears to me like the first to fall are the worst, the most egregious spinners of mistruth, misrepresentation, outright lies, falsehoods, and false narratives. They seem to be the fastest falling right now.
Yeah.
If you look and see who's firing their newsrooms, who's firing the I'll come out and say it, CNN.
Yeah.
I mean CNN. They're
Fox News ain't no saint, but CNN
No,
is like,
no, it's-
yeah,
but they're
the person, the entity the devil would cringe from.
Yeah, yeah.
More lately, and I
So-
don't know what happened because they were really good back in the day, like not even all that long ago.
like Trump snapped their brains.
Yeah,
dude.
I guess.
when I look at
I
it,
have to
or
imagine,
whatever,
even though I didn't follow her, I know she's not CNN, but Rachel Maddow, I have to imagine she was a little less like.
Oh no, she was back in the day. She was not like that.
Yeah.
She was not like that. And
Did you know Tucker Carlson was actually on
Yeah.
what was it, MSNBC? Before Fox
yeah,
News.
yeah, he's got a history.
Yeah,
And
he wasn't always the Fox News, like
he's the giant on there now.
demon or whatever.
Yeah, he's the big guy on there now. He does actually pretty well on there.
Gosh, I couldn't
But-
stand Tucker Carlson actually when I first heard him talking.
I couldn't either.
He's very arrogant, but I think after they came so hard at him from the left, he kind of changed his tone a bit. I don't think that was the right way to go about that. I don't think anybody's life should be threatened or that.
Yeah.
That was egregious to me. The actions people. What would they approach him in a restaurant and like
Oh.
were like trying to go after his daughter? I don't know how old she was, but I don't even think she was like
Yeah.
barely a teenager or something.
Yeah, so a lot of ugliness.
Yeah,
just a lot of ugliness. But the thing is that side seems to be collapsing right now, and I'm watching it in real time, and the thing is that you're gonna lose the public. You keep lying to people, and they're going to get mad.
Yeah.
They're going to get mad. So if you tell everybody that Trump colluded with Russia, for example, and then they find out eventually through their friends, their family that break through to them or whatever, and say, no, actually this is how it went down or whatever, and then they see the receipts for it. A lot of people immediately just say you're lying. They can't accept it because they hate the man so much and everything. And I can understand he can be a very unlikable character, but when you realize you've been lied to about all that stuff, and then lied to about this next thing, and then lied to again, and then lied to again, you're going to get mad because you're going to be like, look, I staked, my belief system on this thing that was just a lie.
Yeah.
And now I look dumb in my family's eyes. I look like a fool in my friends' eyes, and I can't back down. So they either go two ways. They either double down, or they find it within themselves to like, maybe they don't apologize, maybe they just quietly don't say anything, maybe they apologize and they move on, but they're looking back at Stelter and that bunch of people or whatever that just fed them all this garbage, right, for so long, for years.
Yeah.
And they're not happy. They're angry when they hired some new guy to come into CNN to help fix them, and I don't know if he can, because he could go in there and fix it, but I don't know if that will save the company. I don't know if that'll save CNN because, one, people are not tied to cable news anymore. We're not forced to just a few, cable news providers anymore because we get our stuff in streaming and everything like that. But it's also that there's so much momentum in the decline, right? People are just bailing out on them. They tried the CNN and Plus thing. It was immediate flop, immediate failure because people don't want to pay to listen to you because you're garbage.
Yeah.
You're just garbage lies.
I guess.
And I'm not saying that any of these other purveyors of truth or whatever are somehow the authority in this kind of
critical,
stuff. I think you need to be critical of all of it. Yeah.
Just because I appreciate that. Tucker Carlson changed his tone. Like, I still probably don't agree with a lot of. I really actually don't go out of my way to watch him much, but I have.
No, either do I.
His tone definitely changed.
Yeah.
In the last few years. But yeah, I think even though it's probably beaten a dead horse or whatever, like hero worship. I'm just going to bring that up again. I think
we've mentioned that before.
Yeah, so Trump should not be held up on a pedestal.
Nope.
Biden shouldn't. This whole Dark Brandon thing, I at first seemed funny, but now it seems very cringingly cultish. I had a friend on my thing. I was kind of joking around, but I think he, because he used a AI thing to generate this funny thing, and then there was this really cringy fanfic sounding thing, about how great Biden was, and I just really hope he's being satirical. But I'm looking at a lot of his other posts, I think he's really kind of holding him up on a pedestal too, and I don't think they're human beings. We're inherently flawed, I'm not going to say one man or the other was a better,
I got a good piece of advice for the people that are so tribalistic about these things and stuff. When a president gets elected, don't think about him as your guy. Don't think about him as your guy. Okay? Think about it as this was if the guy you voted for wins or whatever, don't think about it as a personal victory or anything like that. Don't even take credit for his win. Just say, this is the guy I picked based on the information that I had. Hopefully, he's a good boss of the executive branch.
Yeah.
Okay? He's probably going to do some things I don't like. That's okay. He's probably going to do some things that I like. That's okay. All right? Hopefully, he'll do more things that I like than I don't like. Okay? He's not a god. He's not a god king. He's not a king. Okay?
Yeah.
He's a president. He's an elected representative. That's it. Okay? Just look at him and say, okay, I agree with that thing. That was a policy that I wanted to see implemented, and it was implemented. Wherever you stand on whatever issue, okay? Yeah. Say, I agree with that. When they do something that's horrifically terrible, like the Afghanistan debacle, where we surrendered after 20 years, countless lives, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
That should be criticized till the end of time. That was one of the worst military debacles in American history.
Yeah, and that was really a little bit Trump and
mostly
Biden, because he didn't.
I would not pin 1% of that on Trump. And
he started the withdrawal, right?
Yes, in a completely different way.
Okay.
In a completely different way.
I don't know enough about that, but
yeah, that would be
people will bring up the point that he was starting the process. So I don't know what his end goal was.
I don't,
but yeah.
and I'm being and I'm trying to be objective about that when I say that.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to military commands, when it comes to doing these things, things are done in a certain way, and it was not done in a certain way. They basically put the State Department in charge of this, a bunch of bureaucrats, and they hosed it up.
Yeah.
Badly, and that should not be forgotten. And that should not be forgiven. That people should be held account for that.
Yeah.
That was wrong. People lost their lives. Every bit of what was fought for, it was completely lost in that. I think it was a disgusting thing.
Yeah.
Now, we try not to get too political and everything like that, but that was a military mishap from any angle.
Yeah.
When I look at stuff like that, you could say that was bad. Right? When you look at somebody and say, okay, they did this thing um, that you can agree with, you can say, okay, that's good. Even
Yeah.
if you didn't vote for the guy,
Uh,
be objective, because I praised Obama for certain things,
yeah.
and I criticized him for certain things. I did the same thing with every single president. I praise certain things and I criticize certain things. And sometimes after the fact, when I learned more information, I changed where I sat on something because I may have at the time had this bit of information, manufactured consent, right?
Yeah.
I'm, falling for it too. I look at it and I say, oh, this was a good thing, just to find out later on. I'm like, no, 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 this is a very bad thing.
Well, something we discussed earlier. It's always drove me crazy, but I can understand why political pundits on in the media, and obviously politicians, they'll want to take credit for the prosperity of something and blame the last guy, for why we can't fix something. And that's been a problem with nearly every presidency I can think of in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But I
Not
know
to
I
say-
know we don't want to talk about COVID, and I'm not talking about anything but the bare sense. When it was Trump's vaccine, it was we're not going to get it, right.
That's a
That's
good
something that
example.
should not have been politicized at all. Like, just to be clear,
Yeah.
I think that there was like too much terrible messaging from both sides. But yeah, you had one side when it was Trump's vaccine, and you can look this up. I mean, I'm just not talking out of my ass. I mean, we had people like Kamala Harris and other maybe Rachel Maddow. I can't remember. There's like a whole clip. I'm not going to get that. He's rushing it. But now it's like, right, you got to get it now that the next guy's in office. This is not something that should have ever happened. Like,
Yeah.
it's either good or it's not. It's good for the greater, good, or it's not. We can't sit there and play the game because, now you got to get it. Oh, it's the greatest thing. Oh, it's Biden's vaccine. No, it was a vaccine. Right.
Here's the funny thing about that. They're changing the messaging on that as we speak.
Yeah.
Well, they're literally changing the messaging right now around that as they speak. And they're going back to more of their original narrative on that, about it being rushed.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should not politicize.
We should not-
stuff that.
Yeah,
is,
we're gonna leave the around that. It's a dangerous subject to talk about on YouTube anyway, so we'll leave that one kind of a bit alone or whatever.
Yeah.
Just look at the politicization of it.
That's what I'm
we're
hitting
saying.
at.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
yeah.
not going to give an opinion one way or another what I think
Yeah.
about anything
Yeah.
surrounding that, but
Just
except
know-
for that, we don't need to politicize stuff that is either going to get people killed, like,
Yeah, but-
or cause great harm, like,
and they're memory holing the stance in a very short
wait, to
period
be
of
clear,
time.
I'm not saying the vaccine's killing people. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
lives were on the line as far as,
Yeah, as
all of
far
the
as-
stuff,
Yeah, as far as
around-
COVID goes
yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah, we're talking about a health crisis.
Yeah,
so
I'm talking about the health crisis of
Yeah.
COVID and the messaging,
the messaging around it and everything.
Yeah, everything to do with it.
So yeah,
Masks are good or they're not.
so when we think about
know?
so when we think about manufactured consent, we think about these
That's a
sort
good
of
example
things.
of where they manufacture, like, we're
Yes.
changing the messaging. Yeah.
Yes, the messaging was.
Oh, well, the
constantly
science
in
changed. Well,
flux.
yeah, I would hope science around stuff like that doesn't
The
change
information changed.
as much. Yeah. I
The
get
data
that.
changes.
Yeah.
Not the science behind it, but the where we're at now is that with the ultra politicization of everything,
Yeah.
Well,
and I would hope that we take some stuff away from the COVID thing and learn for, the next thing, but I fear
Well,
we're just
you-
going to throw it all out the next time.
Well,
because
you
it's
see
gonna be
where the
next-
CDC recently changed their guidance on it, drastically changed their guidance on it. YouTube changed their policy
Well,
on what you can
and-
talk about.
I really don't like to get into talking about Fauci, but he's talking like he's going to retire in December, and now it's endemic. Like, it's either endemic or it's a pandemic. You can't just like say, "Oh, we're going to shut it off now." Like
Yep.
that's what I'm getting at. You
Yeah.
know you can
Yeah,
figure out.
yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what you think, but like
Yeah, and
what to think, like one thing or another. But like
yeah, the reason we didn't want to talk about that stuff too much or whatever is it's just like a drum that's been just beaten so
Right.
much and everything. But and we also are not trying to cause like division amongst family members or anything like that on where they stand, because people feel very strongly about this. But for me, it felt like for me a lot of this is I looked at it for more as like a casual observer kind of thing, and just kept my mind open to the information, and like, okay, what's the best information coming out right now and stuff, and tried to ignore the narrative messaging type stuff and just get down to what's the best decision to make for my family and me and everything. And I think we need to try to look past the manipulation and everything like that. And I think we're as a whole, I think there's a good portion of the population that is getting better at it. Maybe the next generation will be, really good at it. Who knows? But as the old pillars of, the media and stuff like that fall, Fox News might be one of the last to fall eventually, but I don't think they're going to last forever. I just don't think any of them
independent
will.
media, YouTubers are going to take over.
I think independent media is the future.
And that's great for now, but like I hope that we kind of hold them to account,
Oh yeah,
let them become,
I mean, well, we've already
basically
seen
replacing.
We've already seen the independent media captured.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it with Glenn Greenwald's old paper, and we've seen it with like the Young Turks, and we've seen it with we actually see it with different organizations. It could happen to anybody or whatever. They go corporate.
Yeah.
They see those dollar signs. They get a big old donor that
Then
comes
they start
in.
being the mouthpiece and
Start being the mouthpiece for whoever and stuff. So we got to be careful. Follow the money. The old adage goes, follow the money, and there's a lot of truth to that. So I think that we can resist this manufactured consent, and I think us as a society need to push that think for yourself more. And I believe that independent media that cite sources that post the facts and post the receipts on it or whatever, so that you're like, okay, this is what the truth is of it and everything. We need to learn who those trusted sources are, and be aware of when that might shift too. Something they could get bought out, and then all of a sudden it changes. CNN used to be very well trusted. It was
I actually
kind of regular old news at one time.
Up to a point, enjoyed watching CNN and consuming their news more than Fox, because they were always a little more cringy, on the other side. Not so much as we've got recently, but I just don't. I didn't have a use for either of them for the last few years, like 4 or 5 years. This election cycle.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, there's those guys are the commies, and those guys are the white nationalists. It was like, I mean,
it's always the othering. I'm not going to beat that dead horse, but
it's just the way they point fingers at each other.
Stop just labeling somebody and throwing people in boxes. It's never ended well. Right?
You want to take us out, brother?
Yeah. Thank y'all for stopping by. We'd like you to like and subscribe, and maybe share if you get something out of it. We wouldn't mind some comments. Maybe some topics you might want to hear about from a blue-collar perspective, or tell us how we're wrong. I'm going to say my little catchphrase, maybe with a little more confidence today, because sometimes I think I'm just like mumbling into the mic. But I just ask anybody to think for yourself on anything important in your life. And it's great seeing y'all.
Check us out at pffday.com.
Thank you.